We're not on YouTube.
Record, Lisa.
Yes, ma'am. Everybody.
Hold up, we're not on YouTube.
Yeah, we are.
We're on.
Cheers.
Well, good morning, and we'll now turn it over to our city clerk.
This is a regular meeting of the Mobile City Council, Tuesday, May 5th. We'll have our invocations led by Councilmember Small, District 3, and please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance following the invocation.
Yes. Those bow our heads. Dear Lord, at this time of great need in our world, Lord, I ask that you bless us and keep us. May you, Lord, shed your light upon us and give us your peace. Dear Heavenly Father, we ask you to please bless this meeting that we may carry out the city business, Heavenly Father. Please bless our mayor, the administration, the city council, city clerk and her staff, city employees, the first responders, dear Heavenly Father, from the police department, the medical, dear Heavenly Father. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for being so good to us. Please bless our city, our state, our nation, and this world. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag
flag
The United States
States of America and to the which it stands,
one nation,
nation, under God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty.
liberty and justice for all.
Wow.
That was easy.
Roll call, President Manzi,
Here.
Vice President Small,
Here.
Councilmember Richardson,
here.
Councilmember Williams,
Here.
Councilmember Days,
Here.
Councilmember Rich,
Here.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Statement of rules.
Good morning. In
Good morning.
response to national, state, and local guidance due to the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the Alabama Meetings Act and the Governor's Supplemental Emergency Proclamation, we are meeting remotely. While we are in different places, we are able to participate as if we were all in the council chambers at City Hall. And in keeping with the requirements of the Alabama Open Meetings Act, the public is still able to observe the meeting through the live stream. All items we will address during this meeting are either necessary to respond to COVID-19 or necessary to perform essential minimum functions of the city. The public is still able to present comments to the council by emailing them to cityofmobile.org up to 30 minutes prior to the meeting. Public comments will be acknowledged as received during the meeting, distributed to council members, and included in the meeting minutes. As always, the meeting is live streamed and can be viewed through the city's website or on the council's Facebook page. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your continued interest in our municipal government.
Approval of minutes of April 28th and May 1st.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? Outstanding job as always. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It's all approved.
Communications from the mayor.
Cut your mic on, Mr. Mayor.
Got it. Thank you. Matt, can you hear me? Yep.
Yeah.
Hold 1 second. Ricardo, close that door. close that door. Yeah. So good morning. And I want to begin by thanking the City Council for convening on Friday to discuss what we've given the name of Ignite Mobile to, and specifically the areas having to do with addressing those, what we call the close contact businesses. I thought it was a very engaging conversation. You had many good questions and suggestions to make sure that we cross T's and dot I's. Over the weekend, my understanding is that the attorneys continue to work on the formation of the documents. I know that Anitra and her team, I think she's probably a team of one right now, but Anitra and others, work to make sure that we can get all the applicants filed. I know that Councilman Richardson brought up a concern about paper applications. And then there were some other questions. I think that we have possibly answered all of those. What we would like to do and hope that you will do today is consider going ahead and making, given the approval to move the money to set it into the account, the $500,000 to fund this program. And the reason is that we have a lot of people that will qualify for this program that are watching us to see what we're doing. And so I'm hoping that that'll be a positive signal to them that we're going to move forward with this. And what we would do, seriously, right upon your approval, I know those in finance, those working in the business license department, we're going to start the communication process at that point, reaching out to everybody who is eligible so that they can start filling out the applications. And as we get the applications in and as they are approved, we would like to be able to be in a position so that all week long we're receiving applications, we're making the, in some cases, actually cutting a check, but we would not push the button until after next Tuesday meeting when we've got final approval. But it gives us a whole week to get a whole lot of work done. And as you know, there's going to be a lot of work to get done to be able to do this. And again, part of that is that, there's been a lot of disappointment over the last few weeks about the federal government and the state government not being able to expedite funding. Each day that goes by, it's very important that these individuals, can find some kind of relief. And so I'm hopeful that y'all can bring this up today. We're on standby. We can do it at any point in the meeting that you want us to answer the questions, Mr. President, whether you want to bring this up now or later, but between Ricardo, Anitra, your attorney, and Flo and Paul Wesh, I think we can answer all of your questions. So that's it, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. President.
Mr. Vice President?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Mayor, good morning. You said that you all was reaching out to the different businesses. Could you tell the council, how have you all been reaching out to the different businesses regarding this grant program?
So at this time, no, we have not reached out to the different businesses. We were waiting for this for y'all to act today, but I'll let Paul explain this exactly. I'll hit the top line of it though, is that out of our business license department, they have all these businesses listed, and we can either contact them electronically or through the mail, and subject to the approval today of setting the money aside, we would start that process. Paul, have I got that right? Do you need to elaborate on it?
No, that's true. We started online business license renewals in 2019, and we're partially online, but beginning 2020, so this past January and February, we were virtually complete with electronic renewals. There are a few that are not electronic, and there are also some new business licenses that may not be electronic. So what we will do is, beginning tomorrow, we will contact all of our business license holders electronically that we can, but then we'll reach out with mail to those that do not have electronic addresses but do have physical addresses or post office box addresses.
And for those Councilman Small that are not online, they can call 311, and Terrence and his team are set up to via the telephone, we will actually fill out the application for them, subject to their phone call and downloading their information to us if they're not able to do it electronically.
So, Mr. Mayor, the 311 staff is already apprised of this as
Yes.
far as in customer will call and they would just say, you know, we want more information about the grant program, or we trying to apply for the grant program, or what?
Yes. Anitra, can you weigh in on that?
I can, Vice President. So the 311 team will be able to implement the application online. If anyone wants more information about the grant program, they can always call our office. We will have an FAQ sheet up on the website, but if they call 311, they will send them to Community Affairs to answer their questions.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mr. President,
Ms. Richardson?
yes, Mr. Mayor, my concern is not so much with those business owners, but I believe in order to become a barber, you have to certify, and I don't know whether you have to get a license. I know you have to be cleared by some board, but I'm concerned about these individual barbers who lease a chair in a barbershop, or a beautician who is leasing a chair in a beauty shop. Do you have a way to reach them?
Yes. So between Ricardo and Anitra, will y'all address that question?
Sure. So we've addressed that concern. Here's what the document says. If an applicant is an independent contractor and they've got an actual certificate from the Barbering and Cosmetology Board, they should have a business license. Can you hear me?
I hear you, but
No. Let me
they should
finish.
have a business license. That's what you're saying. Okay.
Let me finish. So typically, what I'm saying is that is already a city requirement. That person, if they just rented the chair and they have their barber's license, if they already have that, under our rules, they should also have a business license. So those people would actually get, that's the first category. Those people would actually, if you got both, you will get the money, you'll get the $1,000. However, if you're an employee working for somebody who gets a business license, we have it set up that employee would get paid if they're just working there as a W-2. So in any instance, addressing your concern, the person who has a chair, whether they're an employee or an independent contractor, would get paid under what we currently have set up.
Okay, my concern though, is this a system where we're gonna depend on the owner of the business to be honest and go ahead on and give those employees a check, or are we gonna have a check made out to them?
So if that person has a business license, they will get their own check. They're supposed to have a business license anyway, and that's not something that's unique to this process. That's the same for law firms, for barbershops, anybody. They will, if they have the business license, they will get the check, even if they're just renting the chair. If that person is an employee and they're there with the chair, we will have to depend on the business owner to give them the money. But that business owner has to certify in no more than 90 days that they have used the money in accordance with the way that we've set up, which is paying the employees and taking care of expenses.
Okay, so I'm getting texts down from businesses, and they're saying you're wrong, that employee does not own the business if they got a chair in their shop. They don't own the business.
Well, let me say this, sir. If you give me the name of that business owner who's saying that, we can also direct them to the proper people in revenue. I can tell you, every law firm, if they have multiple lawyers, each lawyer has to have a business license. The same is true for barbershops and beauty salons. Whether people know that or not, that's a different story. But that's how we've done. I can tell you, my law firm has 20 plus business licenses, and any barbershop has to fall under the same rules with revenue. It's a matter of keeping control. That's not something that's new. But what I'm telling you is, to answer your question, and I think it's a good question that you've asked, because we need to educate the public, is if a person has a business license like they're supposed to, they will get this money. If they're working as an employee just out of one chair, then there's still an avenue for them to be able to get paid. If they have not got it. Yeah, as long as they fall into the category of not receiving PPP, not receiving unemployment. So if you receive unemployment, you don't get this money. If you receive PPP, you don't get this money. So this is for the people who've fallen through the cracks.
I have a question. If
Mr.
Mr. Richardson's done. Are you done, Mr.
Yes.
Richardson? Okay, thank you. Mayor, I saw some documentation on how the money will be divided once the business owner who has employees. Is that still part of the process? It was a certain percentage that had to go to the employee and then the balance going to the business itself?
I think that was refined over the weekend. So Ricardo, once again, can you and Anitra address that?
Sure. So there is no specific percentage in the current document.
Okay.
Right, for payroll.
Okay, so then we would be, even though we're giving this out based on the number of employees, there isn't a percentage that has to go to those employees, and the business owner would not be doing anything incorrect according to what the rules are. Is the city going to also produce, I think it's a 1099, because this would go towards their income and would have to be reported for taxes. Are we prepared to do that after the money goes out? Or is this considered somehow not necessary, being grants? I'm really not sure, but that's a question I've been thinking about and wondering what the city's paperwork would be on this.
Ms. Rich, we will be sending out 1099s to anybody who receives money from the city.
Okay, but then they'll have to also turn around and say what percentage went to the person who is their employee. And they'll have, how is that going to be done if we don't know this? Because I really thought the goal was to get to people who fell through the cracks. And a lot of that is that person who, because they have licensure, but they didn't qualify. And this is what we're filling the gap. So how will you know how much money went to that employee of theirs? If we don't give a percentage out, I don't know how we can do the paperwork back to them or verify.
Excuse me, I just came in late, so excuse me if
Sure.
if I missed a previous question, but there is a verification, a declaration that will be signed under penalty of perjury by everyone who receives funds. If the person is an independent contractor, they verify that the funds were used to pay fixed debt and expenses that were incurred that they were not able to pay due to the consequences of the COVID-19 health crisis. And if the person runs a small business, the requirement is that 80% of the funds be used for payroll and at minimum of 80% of the funds be used for payroll, 20% for other business purposes, which is a division that I understood was a recommendation of the council. And documentation will be required to show that the 80% was spent on payroll. That documentation will be submitted with the declaration.
Okay, I appreciate that. I thought that's what I had read, but I wasn't sure whether it had remained as part of the process. And I think it's important, the percentage, that the federal government did 75 and 25, but I read somewhere it was 80 and 20. I don't know who weighed in on that. I just thought that our goal was to get it to these employees, since the gift or the grant is based on employee numbers. So whatever that percentage is, I'm just glad to see it, that it's there to get that in the right hands. Thanks.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I'm closing this out. I'm still getting messages, and I got this message said that a stylist has to go before the State Board of Cosmetology. And if they pass the state board, they would give them a license, and they don't have to come to City Mobile and get another license. They're licensed through the State Board of Cosmetology, and they're up and ready to go and fix hair. They don't need two licenses.
Sorry. Mr. President, Mr. Richardson's question is a good one. That is a constant misunderstanding of what happens here. It's a good question because it allows us to put the real information out there from the city standpoint. So I'll give you a good example. You'll have somebody who's a doctor and they have a license to practice medicine, but they also have to have a business license. You have somebody who's a lawyer or an engineer, but if they're in the private sector, they still have to have a business license. So I'm sure that a number of you all have your individual licenses for the professional aspect, but you still have to have a City of Mobile business license. That's the same with doctors, lawyers, barbers, and stylists. So we're not licensing them to be a cosmetologist or a barber. We're going to give them a license for the business aspect. So we're talking about two totally different things. Cosmetology board, that's a license to be a stylist or a barber or a manicurist. The business license is so that you operate in the confines of the City of Mobile and pay the taxes. Two totally different things, but good question.
I'll just say this, I haven't ever gone to a doctor and saw a business license on the wall. I saw the diploma from the university, a college that they graduated from, and then when they finished medical school and got a license to practice, they got the license to practice from whatever school gave them that or whatever state gave them that. They don't have a municipal license anywhere. Now, whoever owned the complex, whoever opened up the business there, they probably would have a license, but the individual doctors, they don't have no license from the city.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, yeah.
Let
Yes,
me
they do.
speak with authority here now. We have two licenses, even
But
though
you
we
got a
only have one.
business.
We have two licenses. We have one for our business and one for the doctor. One is on gross receipts and the other is a simple application fee. But we have two licenses. You're right, Mr. Richard. We don't have one license. We have two licenses for one doctor or one dentist in sole proprietorship.
Yes, and you can actually ask for it and be shown it if you were inquiring of a practice, that they all had city license as individuals. The other thing is, would that stylist or what Fred is representing, or Councilman Richardson is representing, would that be a subcontractor? So should we put that language in because they might pay a portion of their fees to the owner of the business who has the license? See, I think there'll be people falling through the cracks. Yes, they should probably get their own license, but if they are a subcontractor, I hear what Ricardo is saying. They should each have their own license. It's totally different than giving permission by the Cosmetology or the Barber Association. Those are rules and regulations and visits that they have to make sure they're doing things. But the city's business license is to conduct the business within the confines of our city limits. So I think you might want to urge those people to get their license in order.
Mr. President?
Yes, ma'am.
What Mr. Richardson's talking about may be that the owner of the business does have some subcontractors, and those people may think that they are covered by the business owners as an umbrella, rather than thinking they have to get their own licenses. My hairdresser is in a big shop, but she also has her own city license to do business, as does the owner of the building or the business itself.
And that may be the case in certain salons in certain communities, but as I look back through my barber experience, and I need one now as urgently as possible, each individual, the guy owns the shop, he has 4 chairs, and he puts a sign out saying, I have 3 chairs open. And those gentlemen come in and agree to pay so much a week, and they pay that business owner that portion of resource each week. I can't recall a time I walked into a shop and saw someone outside of the business owner who had an independent business license. So I guess my concern is there a mechanism in place for that barber and that beautician who may, now that we've getting out there, we may need to do an educational period where they know they need to each secure one. But I'm hopeful that that won't be a roadblock to each of those individuals being able to apply for the resources.
Well, like
Councilman
Mrs. Rich said, perhaps in the language of this, it can include subcontractors because, you know, these people are basically employees of the business owner, even though they're probably paying the business owner some sort of rent in order to be in the facility.
Excuse me, I'd like to, if I could, answer the question raised by President Manzi. A very good question. The city revenue department, since the COVID-19 crisis, has gotten a lot of phone calls from independent contractors who maybe did not understand that they needed their own business license. And there's a very seamless, easy mechanism to issue the business license that's happening now in connection with other COVID-19 relief programs. So yes, there probably are a lot of independent contractors who didn't understand they needed a license, but the mechanism for acquiring one is very easy. It can be done online very quickly. And as to subcontractors are independent contractors. It's not a difference. They're all 1099 recipients.
Let me explain something too, and why we tied this to people with business licenses. In order to make sure that we're doing this and it has a public purpose and that the private benefit is incidental, we want to make sure that it's people who do business in the city of Mobile who are on the tax rolls and are paying you revenue and help you provide public services for the general public. That's something that's very unique to what we're talking about here. And I want to say that so we don't lose that. We have built-in mechanisms, Flo and Chris primarily, built-in mechanisms so that everybody who falls into those categories can get paid. Whether you're calling them an independent contractor, subcontractor, employee, as long as there's a business license associated with their legitimate business, then we have a mechanism for them to get a check, whether it be going to the revenue office or the employer or business owner paying them or them having their own business license.
Any further questions? All righty, Madam City Clerk.
Adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Agenda's adopted.
Essential COVID-19 items held over. If there are no objections, I'll take all of these together. 08313, approved purchase order to PKJ International for Nano Dismounted X-ray System. 08314, approved purchase order to DocRx for COVID-19 tests. 08315, approved purchase order to CDW Government for Microsoft Exchange and Microsoft Power Pro by Pro annual licenses. 21319, authorized contract with McQuarrie and Williams to perform engineering services for 12 Mile Creek Bank stabilization. 09323, amend the fiscal year 2019-2020 general fund budget to appropriate funds for an emergency grant program in response to COVID-19. 401092, declare the structure at 1354 St. Meter Street a public nuisance and order it demolished.
Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Yes, ma'am.
Our,
On the St. Madar Street, y'all need to declare that to be an essential minimum function because it was left over from many months ago.
I move that we declare item 40-1092 an essential item.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? Absent any discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Okay, now, Mr. President, I would move adoption of the items that the clerk just read out.
Second.
Been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
essential COVID-19 items, introduced for the first
Wait,
time.
Excuse me. Are we going to vote on those items that
Yes.
we
Yeah.
just, yeah, because we just declared them. So we have to still vote on each
We
item.
declared.
Did that.
No.
That was the vote we just took.
No, I thought we just declared them as essential. Yeah, and so now we'll have to go back and read, because
No.
I have a question about
Two
08314.
votes. We had 2 votes.
We had 2 votes.
We did it.
Okay, well, since we're still in this and we haven't left the item, I would like to have my vote be clarified on 08314 that I vote no. Okay, that's the one with the dark RX tests. I asked a lot of questions last week, and so I'm still there on that. And I realize they're in town, but I just would like to register a vote.
Why don't
Thank
we just take it that she's clarifying that she voted no
Yes.
on?
Yes,
Right.
honest to goodness, I thought you were still declaring them and approving that we could then vote on them. I'm
We're
sorry.
good. We're good.
Well,
Just-
Madam City
Okay,
Clerk,
thank
if
you.
you could make that clarification, Ms. Rich voted no on the so said item that she referenced.
Yes. 08314 for the record. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Okay, now, Mr. President, I would move that all of the items contained in the section of the agenda marked essential COVID-19 items be declared essential COVID-19 items.
Second.
Been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Absent any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Essential COVID items been introduced for the first time, 34Z012 through 60341.
Mr. President, I would move that items 08325, 21331, 31335, and 60341, that we waive the rule on those items and the remainder carry over pursuant to council rules.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Resolution 08325, approved purchase order to Synergy Laboratories for 10,000 COVID-19 whole blood rapid test kits.
Move to
Move to
table.
table.
Second.
Second.
Been properly moved in second that we table. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
21331, authorized contract with Watkins AC Strunk Design for Dog River Park Improvements Phase 3.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
31335, amend the 2019 action plan to add funding for COVID-19 testing for the homeless and senior residents of public housing.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? If not, all
yes,
in
Mr.
favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Vice President.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that this going forward. Last week I had mentioned about the housing development, and to see this is on the agenda is good. There are some concerns already have in the housing development facilities. And I hope that administration is, which I do believe the administration is doing everything is possible to assist the housing board. But anything else that they need, please come to council, because we understand that we do have an understanding that the people that's in the housing development are less fortunate people and most vulnerable people, and especially the air. So we really need to look out for those concerns that's going on in nursing homes that happen in the housing development with the seniors. But again, I'm glad to see this in front of us, and anything else we need to do, we need to jump on and assist the housing board with the situation before we have control of this COVID in our community. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
60341, resolution urging all citizens to wear protective face coverings when entering or working at places of business.
So moved.
Second.
You're properly moved in second. Any discussion?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I'm just hopeful that we will be sending a positive message to our citizens to help them to stay safe. This COVID-19 virus is nothing to play with. It's on the move. It's not on the downtrend. It's on the uptrend. In the month of April, across this nation, every 43 seconds, someone died for the month of April. And we have the highest number in the state. Birmingham has 673,000 people in Jefferson County. We have 423,000, and they have 808. We have 1,200. So we are in a hotbed for this virus, and people are still going into businesses and going to drive-ups where the people are serving them. They don't have no mask on. They don't have gloves on. This is at minimum. This resolution is at minimum because it carries no penalties. We are just encouraging the businesses and their employees, along with our citizens, that if you're going to be if you're going to enter a setting where there are other people, a business where there are other people, that you need to put your mask on. As a matter of fact, Costco started off today. All of their customers and employees must have a mask on. You can't enter that store today without having a mask on. So this is just sending a message out there, and hopefully that our citizens will get this message. Is for the saving of lives. And I do believe that if this virus, we are told that this is the beginning, not the ending. If this virus get worse and worse, we probably, especially for businesses, we probably have to come back and take a stronger measure to say business employees will have to have on a mask and have a penalty with it. But today, this is the best we can do. And I'm thankful for all the support from council members to get this resolution passed.
If I could comment?
Ms. Rich?
Thank you very much. I know that our health director of the Mobile County Health Department has already urged and made a very strong recommendation for citizens to wear masks when they're out in public. And so I feel that this is just probably echoing that sentiment.
Yes.
And my office is happy to support the medical community on this issue. So I'll be voting in the affirmative. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Mr. Williams?
Thank you very much. This is an issue that I think is same as I discussed when we talked about the parks.
Yes.
We have so many people saying so many things in so many different ways, and it appears just to be part of the crowd that's going out there. We need to have one standard, and that is the CDC standard. And if people are not paying attention to it, then they're not taking personal responsibility. We must at some point back away as a government and have people do what they should be doing. There is no fine. There is nothing we can say. I applaud Costco. I applaud Fresh Market. And you know what? I have a choice. I have a choice to go in the store or not in the store. I don't have a right. I don't have a right to go onto somebody's property. I do have the choice to say, I will go where I feel safe. And I had a person come up in my yard this weekend when I was planting grass. And I asked him, hey, I said, what's going on? He goes, nothing. Now, we all know that never goes to nothing. He had been to Lowe's, and he's a friend of mine. And he was saying that no one, absolutely no one in Lowe's was wearing gloves or masks. And I told him not to go to Lowe's anymore, to find a place where he felt safe. And I just don't want to mislead our residents in that we have some authority to tell people whether or not to wear a mask or not. It is our personal responsibility. I have my mask right here. I carry it in my pocket. I have 2 or 3 more that I have in my car. But that is my responsibility when I can't maintain social distance to put on a mask. But it is not our responsibility as a council to tell somebody else what to do with this regard. And I don't normally abstain, but that's what I will do in this case.
Mr. President,
Mr. Richardson?
let me say, we are doing what is required by a government. Man in the state of nature had no government. In that state, he could rape any woman. There's no police to call, no sheriff to call. He's in the state of nature. It's a survival of the fittest. The strongest will survive and the weakest won't. He can murder anybody he wants to. There's nobody to call. He can commit any crime he wants to because there's no government to act on behalf of the citizens. So they went that far so long, and then they put some of that rights in the hands of a government to protect them. That is the main purpose of the government. So the government tell us that you got to have a tag on your car before you drive it. You got to have a license before you can drive it. You got to have a license before you get married. You got to get a permit to build your house. The government tell us most of the things about our life that is important. And to say that the government should not tell me anything pertaining to my health, and we know it's going to kill them, we'll be derelict in our responsibility to allow our citizens to go down a road that we know going to harm them, and we do nothing. When we passed the ruling, when the ruling was passed that you got to be in the house after 10 o'clock, we didn't tell our citizens, you know, it's up to you. You can stay how long as you want to. You don't know. We gave tickets out. And I would grant you that it probably didn't harm nobody. They were in their own car. They weren't passing no germs off to nobody. We still was giving tickets. We are dealing with people who can breathe this germ in your face, saying you ought to have sense enough. No, we ought to have sense enough because they have put their rights in the hands of a government. We got to have sense enough to do what's right. Even if they don't, we must do what we know is right.
Mr. President, I'd like to quote the gentleman from the 1st District that it is not our responsibility for public health. If he said it once, he said it 25 or 30 times. Ours is public safety, and public health is the responsibility of a non-elected official in our county who is the county health officer. And he has given his guidance, and he is strongly encouraged. And that is the one voice that ought to be heard with regard to public health. We, to quote Mr. Richardson, do not have the authority or responsibility for public health.
And we're not going to give out nothing that's going to affect their health. We're not giving out any medicine. We're not giving them no mask. We're not giving them anything.
Well, I just think in these very perilous times, the city, even from a health perspective, has stood up and bridged gaps. We've got a testing center there at Ladd Stadium. We've ordered kits, and
We're not testing anybody.
No, I didn't say we were testing, John. I said we had a testing center at Ladd Stadium. So my point is, we've already gone down this road, and there are citizens in my community that don't have a choice. They are limited by transportation. They're limited by resource. So the shops in their neighborhoods, they depend on them in order to put food on the table. And those persons, the fast food restaurants in their vicinity are where they're gonna have to go because of limitations from transportation and other respects. And I don't think this is out of the ordinary. Other municipalities in our state have mandated masks and put fines associated with it.
$500.
And so I think this is a good first step, and hopefully the only step that will be needed from our perspective in order to encourage business owners to not only be responsible for their workers, but for the welfare of those who choose to patronize them, or those who don't have the choice but to stay in that community and patronize them. I study as I stop at different places. I see some, the place I referenced last week, evidently they got the message because it's a totally different situation there this week as opposed to last week. And so I'm hopeful, and I believe we're speaking with one voice. All we're doing is backing up what our county health official, Dr. Aisho, has already said.
Right.
This isn't divergent of what he's saying. We're speaking in one voice in that respect. And so I'm in support of the resolution. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And one abstention.
So the item passes 6-1 with the extension being the fine gentleman from the 4th District, Mr. John Charles Williams.
Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. Reggie Hill has submitted communications to the council, and he's also submitted some supplemental comments to you all that will be entered into the minutes of this meeting.
Mr. President, Mr. Hill, that I would read the gist of his questions. He hasn't asked this every week, but I told him a long time ago, and I told anyone that submitted their questions that in summary, I would help them be heard. So if you will allow.
Yes, sir, Mr. Williams.
Thank you. He had one concern, and I guess I have the same question, and then that is when do supporting documents, the things that we see that nobody else can see that are attached to our agenda, when do they become available online for the general public's view? That question I would like to know as well. He asked a question, he got an answer on based on, when can the mayor act without our approval? He got the answer from the city clerk and thanked her for that today. He had a question about the what is being done to ensure that the resources transferred from CDBG funding will be replaced for their original use and utilized what they were initially intended. And that is obviously with regard to the current pandemic. And I think that we ought to be looking at that as we do with everything. And the last thing, he said, how does the city council plan to address those who don't wish to wear face masks based on their constitutional rights? And that is all. Thank you.
Madam City Clerk.
Announcements?
Mr. Williams.
Thank you very much. I want to take this opportunity to clarify and send without misunderstanding. The number one thing that is going to stop the spread, and it's not riding down the street. I see people riding down the street, nobody in their car with a mask on. I see people in their own yards with nobody around them with mask on. And the purpose of the mask, and it should be done by two people who are within 6 feet of each other. Both have a responsibility. And I agree with Mr. Richardson. This is a very serious issue. And we must not only wear our masks, but ask the person that's in front of us to do the same. We must ask the person going down the wrong way in a Publix aisle to turn around and go back without fear. If we don't fear the virus enough that we are not willing to look at our fellow man, our fellow citizen, and say, will you please step back or put a mask on? Would you please don't touch this item that I am buying? I'll hold it up and you can scan it. We have a responsibility, every single citizen in this city and in this state and country. And until we do that, we will not whip this thing. There is a long list of things that we must protect ourselves from. The government just simply can't do it. I would hope that we will all do this, that every time we have the opportunity, that we'll take the positions, these platforms that we have been elected to say that individual responsibility is the only answer. It's the only answer. And it's time for the governor to open up our businesses and let people act responsibly. All our businesses. Thank you.
Ms. Gregory?
Thank you, Mr. President. A few things. I want to thank Jim DeLapp and his department, in particular, Tony Ebright and Vernon Collins, for extra special effort that they gave weekend before last to, on a Saturday, to go and to pick up a dead animal that was in a cage that was dumped near the right-of-way area that nobody could see. They really went above and beyond. The area where the animal was dumped is where people are continually illegally dumping as it is. The man who lives out there close to it called me extremely frustrated. But once Tony and Vernon and their crew got involved and Jim had okayed it, they got out there, picked it up, and the gentleman who called was extremely appreciative. And I just want to thank these guys for going above and beyond. It's a regular trash day, so they were out working. It wasn't a special trip to go out there, but just getting it done and helping an individual who had called and was just beside himself with this animal that had been illegally dumped and was continuing to deteriorate. The smell was awful. So again, just many thanks to Jim and his department for taking care of that. I also want to give a special shout out to Janie Tucker, who has taken over the mowing responsibilities within the department. And I told her recently that Ziegler Boulevard has never looked so good. So many thanks to Janie and everyone who works with her on taking care of the mowing on these rights of ways. This Thursday, May 7th at Friendship Memorial Baptist Church on Cody Road, Feeding the Gulf Coast is partnering with Friendship in a food giveaway. And I have contributed funds to Feeding the Gulf Coast to help make this happen. It all begins at 11 o'clock. They are expecting a huge turnout. So it's first come, first serve, 11 o'clock. If anybody is in need, this is to ensure that people who do have needs within the community are helped during this time because of the virus. And I've had some questions about when the libraries would open. I contacted Robert Hyde. He said they are, of course, following the lead of the city as to when they will actually reopen libraries. You can still drop off if you've got any books that are due, whatever, or movies, you can drop them off in the outside containers, but beginning on May 11th, you'll also be able to do curbside pickup of any item that you have called to reserve. They will bring it out to your car if you've got anything on hold that you want to pick up. So that's good news. I know a lot of people are really looking forward to getting those libraries back open. And that's all. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Gregory. Mr. Vice President?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm pleased to announce that work has started, begun on Baltimore Street. The crews have moved in, and some work has started to happen on Baltimore Street. I can't wait to announce the official groundbreaking ceremony. When it happens, we're going to try to keep it limited, keep everybody spaced out, and encourage the residents to wear masks. And I really want to do that because it's something that many neighbors did not ever thought they would, even see. I had one resident contact me on yesterday and said, Mr. Small, we never thought this was going to happen. So this is a great deal within the Oakdale community, and looking forward to announce official groundbreaking ceremony of Baltimore Street, breaking up the street to start the new progress for the new way of life in the Oakdale community. And again, remember that District 3 is a place where things are happening, and next week, bringing more information that's going on in the Oakdale community. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome, Mr. Vice President. Mr. Richardson?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Thank you. I agree somewhat with John, but I differ in this sense that unless we can do massive testing, it's going to continue to get worse because we can't separate the sick from the well, and the sick does not know, and they keep interacting with the well, and then they affect the well, and that's what's really happening to us. On April the 1st, we had 53 confirmed COVID-19 cases. By April the 30th, well, let me just say, on April the 4th, we had 53 cases on April the 1st, but on April the 4th, the governor issued a stay-home order. She issued a curfew, and she issued an order on distancing. That's when we were in the 50s. By April the 30th, we had 1,057 cases. We're beyond 1,200 cases. And then to think that if we went to curfew and all of this with 50-some cases, and to say we are really ready to open up all of our shops and that, I don't think we're there. I don't think we're there. I differ from that point there. I don't think we're ready for that unless we're ready to see mass infections and to see a lot of people dead. So I think I think we need to, before we do that, I think we need to fight for testing so we can, especially those people that are vulnerable, these nursing homes. We just crawl in, this month we'll go to this nursing home and we find 60 with the virus, and then next month we'll go to this. We need to go and test those people we know that are at risk. We need to get go and get the test done, or whatever we have to do that. If the city needs help, we've spent thousands of dollars on tests. Yet the record show, I think we got about 8,000 people in the county have been tested. We have 413,000 people in the county, and we have tested 8,000. We've spent thousands of dollars on tests. I don't know what's happening with the tests. I mean, it has just a very small amount of citizens been tested, but we are still spending money on tests. So we need a plan on how we go and attack this regarding testing. And I think once we finish testing and isolating who is sick and who is well, we are ready to open up, because we will have separated those that is infected with the virus from those that are not. And I also would like to thank Mayor Simpson for approving the second speed hump for Herbert Street. Those people were very disgruntled over there because they didn't think they were going to get the second one. We made our appeal to the office of Mayor Simpson, and Mayor Simpson said we could have the second one, and it was accepted in a happy manner over there on Herbert Street. Those citizens were looking forward to that second speed control device. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Mr. Davis?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to state very briefly that I think that the measure we passed today with respect to the face mask was the appropriate measure. But ultimately, as Councilman Richardson says, this is not going to be, there are limits to what government can do. And ultimately, it's up to each individual to protect themselves. That's the only way we're going to get through this. It's up to each individual to protect themselves. And you wear the face mask, it's a reciprocal deal. The face mask, there are only a few face masks which really aren't available to the general public that protect the wearer. You're wearing the face mask to protect the people you are interfacing with. And so you expect them to reciprocate it.
Right.
The same way. But ultimately, it's up to each of us to protect ourselves. I would just like to mention one other thing. Late last week, I got a number of calls from individuals in the Spring Hill community. There was an engineering firm going around apparently scouting cell tower or cell pole locations. If you're going to put up a pole in the city of Mobile, whether it's erected on city property or private property, you got to get a permit from the city in order to do it. You don't need a permit to scout locations. These folks can go around scout locations all day, spend as much money as they want, go wherever they want to. They can scout locations, but they can't put up a pole until they get a permit from the city of Mobile. Now, one of the locations they were scouting seemed to me singularly inappropriate for a cell tower location. The other thing about these poles or towers is that there's criteria for the permit, but one of the criteria is that that there is no less intrusive a location than the one you're applying for that tower. And there are some of these cell phone installations, these cell installations that get be attached power poles, which we got thousands of power poles in the city of Mobile. And that's what they need to be doing with most of these. I've asked the permitting department to notify me of any of these, any application that shows up for a cell tower or pole within District 5. These folks, the applicants need to understand that, anytime they're out there looking at cell tower locations, the people, the nearby residents or businesses are gonna not like it. And we get the calls, and we need to be notified of it. I also contacted Councilman Richardson, who is chairman of our ad hoc committee dealing with these various issues having to do with utilities. And I asked him at an early opportunity to schedule another meeting where we have these utility providers in. We have a number of things. We need to get an update from Alabama Power on pulling poles. We need to, so I had that going on, and then I pull out on the Old Shell Road, and I got another utility putting lines down on the south side of Old Shell Road, tearing up sidewalks that were just torn up about 6 or 9 months ago. So I understand we need to be moving the city towards the ability of people to have available digital communications, but it's got to be done in an orderly process that doesn't continue to destroy the infrastructure we've spent millions of dollars creating over the last several years. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Ms. Rich?
Oh, thank you very much. I would just like to remind everyone that this Sunday is Mother's Day. So I wish everyone to have a great one and to enjoy their time with their family members. And if your mom is no longer with you, I hope that those sweet memories will give you peace and comfort. But I hope it's a wonderful Sunday and that it builds a lot of memories for all of you. Thanks.
Now that concludes your announcements, Ms. Rich. Wonderful. Has everyone already had their announcements? I want to make certain I'm not forgetting anyone. Ms. Gregory, you've already had announcements, correct? Wonderful. Well, I want to, I totally agree with you, Ms. Rich. You want to wish all of the very fine mothers of the city of Mobile a happy Mother's Day. And I'm so blessed to still have with me my dear and sweet mother, Miss Jeanette Nixon Manzi. Want to wish her a happy Mother's Day. And I hope every day I try to make it a Mother's Day for you. Is my plan. We have a lot going on in the city of Mobile. I want to make clear that this process that we have for citizen input. The council has put in place the protocol. And the protocol is that if you have something that you would want to offer relative to the end agenda items, for you to submit that to the city clerk, and then that item would be disseminated to members of the council and added to the minutes. That's the official protocol. So there aren't any, as the presiding officer, I'm not choosing to acknowledge one person's commentary and ignore anyone else's. What I'm doing is following the protocol. Now, Mr. Williams has agreed if they would submit items to him, that he would succinctly go over those items, and that's fine. But I want to make certain that it's understood that it's not personal. It's not against any person from any community in the city. It's following the protocol, the established and agreed upon protocol. Now, if we want to do it a different way, I'm open to that. But I'm taking some criticism because we aren't reading every line and verse and syllable of what persons are submitting when that is not the established protocol. So members of the council, if you would like to weigh in on that during the course of this next week, please let me know. It's important that we have the ability to hear from citizens. There are those who are watching us on YouTube who are texting me as this meeting is going on, who are inboxing me as through Facebook as this meeting is going on. So this notion that we're not paying attention is an erroneous notion. And I want to just put that out there so that we're all on the same page. And it's my job to carry out the wishes of this council by virtue of our established protocols. And that's what I do. So I'm not picking one over the other. I'm doing what we've agreed to do. And so I've said that there are a lot of great projects to our seniors. Do the best you can to stay at home. If you have an underlying health issue, home is the best place. Download Instacart, get your groceries delivered, let your mail sit out 2 or 3 days in the sun before you go and open it. This is a serious issue. One of my mentors passed, and I hate I was not able to attend his funeral service. But I know my health conditions, and so I'm doing the best I can to preserve myself and also the persons that I live with. And it goes back to that personal responsibility. We've got to have some common sense for ourselves. But there are those among us where common sense is not common. And where that exists, government needs to step in. Because I can't make the person next to me put a mask on. I can ask him all day long, Johnny, Jimmy, please put your mask on. If they don't have it and they refuse to put it on, then that's not only infringing on, that's not only their personal choice, that's when their personal choice is impacting me. And if I'm in a grocery store, Lowe's, a place like that, then I think I'm hopeful that what we passed today is as far as we need to go. But it's clear that Mobile is the hotbed. In spite of all we've said and all we've done, we've got the unified command, the ununified command, and any other command. They're having press conferences every day. And in spite of that, we're still the hotbed. And we've got to do something. I just don't believe the answer is we can't do nothing and leave everybody up to their own devices. Because at some point, if we go down that road, we will never flatten the curve with this pandemic. And Mobile will continue to be the hotbed. And so that's my take on it. If I'm going out in the public, I'm going to have my mask on. And I don't want to have conversations in the public. Call me, text me, email me. We are in the middle of a storm and we need to conduct ourselves as such. And there are those who won't take this serious until it impacts them. And it's sad that it has to go that way. So that pretty well concludes my announcements. Any further announcements from members of the council?
Mr. President?
Yes, sir, Mr. Vice
Yeah,
President.
I've been hearing from many citizens are talking about they've been gaining a lot of quarantine weight at home because they're not out and about. I know that the testing site had killed many people from exercising and walking at Ladd Stadium, but I do want to invite those citizens that walk at Ladd Stadium to come over to Baltimore Street, Taylor Park. We have a nice walking trail right behind the community garden. You can park in the parking lot and then walk right behind the community garden, and there's a walking trail right back there. And you might catch me there late evening or early in the morning, so come and join me.
I appreciate that, Mr. Vice President. And we have walking trails at James Seals in the Plateau community there at next to Robert Hope. We've got 3 or 4 walking trails in District 2. You got your sidewalk, you got your backyard. There are those who are walking in their house. And then you have to be mindful of what you eat too. If you don't eat it, you won't gain it. I'm having to learn that the hard way. But thank you, Mr. Vice President. Any further announcements? Any announcements from the administration? Do I hear a motion?
They're gone.
Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Is that a second? We probably moved to second. We would adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? Thank all of you.
Thank you, Lee.